Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Cajun Night Live. I am your host, the Cajun Knight, Jacob Mook, and welcome all of the members of the retinue. Before we started recording, we were kind of talking about, just things, just the goings and comings of everybody's day. Royce was showing us his phenomenal book collection. I would say probably 2/3 of it are relatively properly Jewish books, which is dope. But, as we were talking about things, I had Royce do a thing. I had our resident Jewish correspondent do a thing before we get to the geopolitical news, before we get to all the things. So Ari Shaffir, for anybody who does not know, he's a stand-up comic. He's a professional comedian. He's been in the game for forever. All of the top comedians on earth know him and are friends with him, except he's also, and I say this with as much love and respect as I can, a raging ass. Like he is ruthless. But the thing is, he's ruthless to everybody, especially people he cares about, like his best friends. Oh, it is just no holds bar. Nothing is off the table. He slipped Bert Kreischer acid without telling him while he was like fixing dinner for his wife and kids, and just like thought it was the funniest thing. Like he's unhinged. But at one point he was in rabbinical school and he left the faith. I think he would consider himself now an atheist, and he released a comedy special called The Jew. It's on YouTube. I highly recommend people go watch it. If you really like laughing at Jewish things and not getting offended by overt, really dark, deep comedy. But Royce, you checked it out. I sent you a link. I would love to hear your retort on The Jew from Ari Shaffir. You got to unmute yourself, though, because I actually muted you as we got started. So, yeah.
My bad. No problem.
No, you good.
It was interesting, right? So you definitely picked on the things that were some of the more prevalent, but like obscure things. I'll tell you this.
Prevalent, but obscure. What does it mean? Like he was going for the low hanging fruit?
I mean, for anybody who's religious, all these things are widely known.
Yeah.
Right. As opposed to people that are. So when it comes to, he gave two stories. So one about Kaparo and the other one about Tashlich. So the one about Kaparo was when he was talking about the rooster, about how on the morning before before Yom Kippur, you take a chicken, you say a prayer over it, and it gets slaughtered, and that's akin to like some of one's own sins. And then also Tashlich, where you basically take bread and then you feed it to the fish. So from those two stories, I don't believe he was brought up super duper religious, because if he was, he wouldn't have just picked one over the other, or he wouldn't have misunderstood or not understood what those stories were. I think that they probably were religious-ish. And probably his parents probably wanted to become more religious and then send him to yeshiva. But so the low hanging fruit as far as while it's true that during worship and prayer, men and women don't sit together in Orthodox synagogues. It's not because women are anything other than absolutely gorgeous and they distract us. Right, so that's for our benefit, not for women. It's like women can literally be in service and they can pray, and then and I myself am guilty of there's a attractive woman, right? You're gonna want to look over, because men are men.
So with that being said, he also made a joke about how he's only slept with 2 Jewish women in his life, and they both looked like his Aunt Ruth. So is this a thing?
So since I was not raised Jewish,
fair.
I have not. I'm trying to think of how many Jewish women I've slept with. It has not been very many.
I would think not. There's not many Jewish people on Earth, like by the numbers,
So by conversion, my ex-wife was Jewish, and while her father was Jewish, and she had a very predominant schnoz.
You said it, not me, brother. I'm here. Let's go. Okay.
There's a reason. So I figured I would, enjoy having fun with that one.
Absolutely.
So like I can't verify or vouch that every other Jewish woman looks like there. So there's a person who I just met last week. We were just talking to the gas station, and she was kind of flirty with me, and she, like, lo and behold, her family's Jewish. I'm not sure if it's her mother or her father, but like I don't know. She doesn't necessarily look Jewish,
Mm.
so I couldn't honestly tell you one way or the other as far
Okay.
if that's stereotypical.
So
But I
when you
mean,
brought up the mikvah
maybe.
joke, though, that about had me dying. And it makes sense why Jewish families have like 12 kids. Because, like, with the whole 7 days of waiting till after the blood and all this, and
Right.
it's like, dude's all pissed off. He ain't got no ass and all this. Then she walks in the door. So I just got back from the mikvah, and he's all of a sudden like, what's up? What's good?
Yeah.
And like, that's when they're ovulating. So it's like, actually, when they said be fruitful and multiply, they actually made the rules to where they can't help that. So like,
I mean, and first of all, it is 100% a mitzvah to have relations on that night, right? And it's also a part of the code of Jewish law that a woman is not, when I say obligated to three things, because she's given three things, right? Obviously more than that, but like one of the things that she's given is, I think it's clothing, food, and conjugal relations.
Clothing,
So
food,
like,
and conjugal relations?
having sex. Like a woman can say,
Okay.
"Hey, I want to fuck now," and it is your obligation to be with her. So like,
Heard
right.
that.
So unfortunately, a lot of Jews get a bad rap for women being second class citizens. And while it is true that men and women have different roles, I've seen it to where women are held in very high esteem
For
in
sure.
any synagogue that I've gone to, and like even so much to where, for the most part, on Shabbos, after you make the blessing on your hands and then have your bread, there was one household that I went to many years ago to where the man's wife actually cut the challah and gave it out. So depending on how religious you are, or
Is that
depending
typically a
on your,
man's role?
yes.
Okay. Gotcha.
Typically, it's something that men do.
To cut the bread and hand it out. That's like I got you. Okay.
I mean, so one is required to have a religious, 2/3 religious meals on Shabbos, and the way you have a religious meal is with bread and wine.
Gotcha.
So, but yeah,
Okay.
it was definitely funny. There were some low hanging fruits. It was like, all right, like I get you. Even when we're talking about like multiple shishim, like that, there's a lot. That's kind of a famous thing to where a lot of people know it. Even they might have just randomly heard it, but like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was nothing in there that was so shocking. That was like, oh my god, I never heard before. So some of the things were definitely funny.
For non-Jewish people, I feel like a lot of those, or people that didn't grow up even around Jewish people, I feel like a lot of those jokes are like, wait, what now? But like, yeah, for you, you're probably like, yep, yeah, it's a thing, sure, whatever. But yeah,
I mean, they even talk about in the Zohar, like he mentioned where I was talking about, like, what happens, when you have an orgasm and you're feeding demons. Like, sometimes there are some very Kabbalistic ideas, and there's a reason why there's a lot of books that are not translated in English for that reason, because like you need to be a certain caliber in order to really be able to study. And even though people study the Zohar or whatever, like, unless you have a teacher, unless you're really at a place, most of it is just nonsense. And I've told you this before.
Yeah, which again, one of these days I would love for you to come
August. So Raven already asked me for, so sometime in August. Now that I'm finished with school, and now that the fires have subsided, I will start my research, and I will be on your show sometime in August.
Okay, sounds like a plan. All right, so now that we've gotten the Jewish/religious, all the things conversation out of the way, let's talk about what is going on in the world right now. We're going to start off talking about America for obvious reasons. I'm an American. That's just kind of where my heart is what it is. But then we are going to make our way towards the international conversation. And while we're at it, we're going to start, close to home here. Trump's new 50% tariffs on Canada risk igniting a fresh trade war. Okay. I'm hearing a lot of things. I'm hearing a lot of, murmurs about the new tariffs on Canada, how that's going to screw over America. And it's like, how many goods do we actually buy from Canada? Like, sure, some liquor, some milk, some dairy products. I'm not saying there's nothing that we buy from them, but I don't think this is going to hurt America the way that the Dems are making it seem like it's going to, but whatever. And the main reason why he's doing these tariffs, again, I'm hearing different stories. Everything from, because Carney is a socialist cuck and Trump is trying to screw it to them, all the way to, well, the fires in Canada's, the smoke from that is blowing over into America's airways, and I don't like it. So 50% tariffs, handle your shit, Canada. I don't know. But we're going to read into this a little bit, see what fleshes out of it. So, all right. President Trump on Monday announced sweeping tariffs against Canada, threatening to reignite a trade battle with one of America's closest allies and top economic partners. Because we share this massive border and all, but continuing, the 50% tariffs on certain Canadian goods, not all, certain, including electrical equipment and machinery, are among the steepest tariffs his administration has levied against any country. Although the president has recently threatened tariffs against America's neighbor in retaliation for wildfire smoke that poured into the northern part of the United States, he threatened the tariffs because of smoke. And again, I don't believe that he was threatening that because he thought the wildfire was going to jump across the border. Maybe that's the case, but smoke doesn't cause fires. Do what you want with that. Administration officials said that the latest tariffs are unrelated. Oh, well, that's good. That's good. Cooler heads and all that. The levy takes effect in 30 days, covering about $20 billion of Canadian goods, the White House said. The Canadian Prime Minister, Mark Carney, cuck in charge, as some are calling him, socialist in charge, Trudeau 2.0, but worse, said the country believes in the benefit of free and fair trade. Yeah, I bet they do. In all circumstances, Canada will work relentlessly and take any measures necessary to build our strength at home and to support Canadian workers, farmers, businesses, and families. But Ontario Premier Doug Ford went further, immediately encouraging Canada to retaliate. Which, okay, if Canada was to really retaliate, they're only going to be the ones to suffer. America could absolutely exist without Canadian goods. I don't know for a fact how heavily Canada relies on America for our goods, but I just don't see that as being a net positive for old Canada. But let's read in. Let's learn together. If these tariffs proceed, Canada should respond tariff for tariff, dollar for dollar. Ford said that in a post on X. Trump cited Section 338 of the Tariff Act of 1930, a law that allows a president to set tariffs up to 50% when another country discriminates against American goods. However, the law has never been applied this way. Excluded from the latest round of tariffs are several key Canadian imports, including energy products, critical minerals, fish, and other goods that are subject to industry-specific duties, such as cars and metals. Well, shocker that those won't be tariffed, but all right. However, unlike other levies Trump has enacted against Canada, there will be no carve-outs for goods covered by the trade pact known as the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, which is currently under negotiation. The Canadian Trucking Alliance and Industry Group warned of higher costs for consumers and urged the United States and Canada to negotiate. You cannot disrupt the world's most integrated supply chain without massive collateral damage. That's what CEO Stephen Laskowski said in a statement shared with CNN. These tariffs will immediately spike freight. Wow. These will immediately spike freight costs, create severe border bottlenecks, and hurt consumers in both nations. I don't really see it that way. Like I don't know. I understand that I'm missing a lot of the nuance as to why this is going on, but of all the people, of all the countries that we would tariff, especially to 50%, the hell did Canada do? It's not because of that smoke from the wildfires. And even if you hate Carney, so what? We hated Trudeau. He didn't. I don't know. I feel like there's like something unspoken here that I'm just missing. I don't know. A new potential trade tool, however, according to research from Capital Economics, only about 5% of Canadian imports would be affected by the new tariff, or about 0.6% of total U.S. imports. So again, it's not going to make a whole lot of difference. Still, if Trump's use of Section 338 is upheld by the courts, it could become a useful tool for future trade negotiations. This is what Stephen Brown said, chief North American economist at Capital Economics. Take a step back. It's striking that the Trump administration is now reaching to a new method of implement tariffs. He wrote this in a research note on Monday. Tariffs have become one of Trump's go-to economic negotiation tactics, which he has attempted to levy against every major U.S. trade partner during his last term. Okay, once again, 5% of Canadian imports will be affected. And you do the math on this, this is going to affect less than 1% of the things that America buys. Okay? Right? And even on the other side of this, we're talking 1/20th, one out of every 20 things that Canadians buy might be affected by this tariff. Yeah, you see my point. It's a saber rattle, y'all. Norris Trucker, our resident Canadian correspondent, please speak in on this, brother. What have you heard in your neck of the of old Canada?
Not a whole lot, but you just speaking on this just told me that everything's going to go up another 50%. That's it. Because our government is so fucking corrupt that's what they'll do.
I mean, maybe, but even still, it's only 5% of y'all shit.
Right, but still, they'll find some ways to go and say, okay, yeah, it'll go to food, it'll go to gas, it'll go to housing, that kind of thing, where the price of everything will just go up.
I mean, I guess
so we'll end up paying for it somehow.
I mean, that's how tariffs usually work. The consumers are the ones that foot the bill on that, you know?
Yeah.
Although, as that's the case, being as how Canada is becoming more and more of a socialist nation, would the government not foot the bill for that? Is that not how it works?
No.
Interesting. It's almost like socialism and Marxism in general just don't work. It's crazy.
No, it don't. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, I hope that your shit does not go up more, especially like gas, which they say fuel and energy products are not going to be affected by the tariffs. That's what they're saying for now. Give it another 2 months to let some other dumb shit happen, and I bet it will expand a bit. I don't know. Getting into it here, however, the Supreme Court ruled in February that the president could not use the International Emergency Economic Powers Act to implement sweeping tariffs globally. The decision negated Trump's attempt to tax imports from every country and additional punitive tariffs on China, Canada, and Mexico, which I still think is crazy. Like, I understand tariffing the entire world is not a good move. I understand that that's being a bit of a dick. I get that. Same time, it got some things in motion. You know, some things didn't really make a difference. Some countries capitulated and were like, look, we still need to make this deal happen, so let's talk. Like, let's negotiate here. I thought it was a saber rattle, but one that got results to a degree. So whatever. I don't know. Instead, Trump imposed temporary across-the-board 10% tariffs under Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974, which are set to expire later this week. Last week, the U.S. announced a new 25% tariff on many Brazilian imports under Section 301, following a year-long investigation into Brazil's trade policies that it said found to be unfair. The U.S. has also previously threatened to impose more tariffs on China, its primary economic rival in global trade, which is already facing much steeper tariffs than other nations. Though tariffs were undecided. Oh my God, my eyes. I'm just taking these off. I can't read through the fucked up fingerprints on my glasses. Though tariffs were undiscussed during a summit between Trump and Chinese leader Xi Jinping in May, Xi is expected to visit the U.S. in September. Why wasn't that discussed? Xi came to America. Of all the things you think they could have talked about, you would think that Xi would at least bring it up in conversation about this whole tariff situation, or maybe Trump would even try to dunk on him and flex and bring it up or something. But of all the things they talked about, no one brought up the fact that just a few months back, it was 145% tariffs on all right, whatever. In its statement Monday, the White House emphasized that Canada was one of two countries that had chosen to retaliate against U.S. tariffs rather than negotiate. The other country being China. Which, again, shocker, seeing as how China and Canada have gotten closer and closer together and have gotten more and more in bed with each other. It would make sense that China and Canada would be in solidarity when it comes to some tariffs. But anyway, we'll see what happens, y'all. I'm not really holding out a whole lot of oh my God, did you hear? Okay, cool. So we're talking about 50% tariffs in Canada. Either A, give it a week or two, and this will be completely wiped off the table, or option B, it stays in effect and 0.6%, 0.6% of U.S. imports are affected and 5% of Canadian imports are affected. Wow. Whoa. I don't know. But like Norse Trucker is saying, it's very possible that means that just as a response to that, other prices of things are going to go up because the market is so fickle. It is what it is. Same thing that happened with SpaceX. And I know I'm harping on that one a lot, but seriously, you got a $1.3 trillion valuation, and then in 3 weeks' time, less than 3 weeks' time, that evaluation dropped $500 billion because the market is fickle. It's fairy dust. It's ethereal numbers. It doesn't matter. It's not backed by anything. But anyway, all right, moving forward. So this is from Politico. CMS suspends more than $1 billion in Medicaid dollars to Minnesota and California over suspected fraud. This was brought up, I think it was actually brought up on the Cult Live last night, and I decided to do a little bit more digging into it. I know Politico, yeah, feel whatever you want about the source, got it, but at least this will give us a good litmus test here. The Trump administration is withholding more than $1 billion in Medicaid funding to California and Minnesota over what it deems suspect claims. Tuesday's funding suspension is the latest action by the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services to target Medicaid funding in the two states. More than $2.5 billion has been deferred from them due to fraud concerns this year. If it smells like fraud, we're not paying it anymore. That's from the administrator Mehmet Oz. He said that during a Tuesday event announcing the deferrals. The agency is deferring $867 million in Medicaid funding to California and $199 million to Minnesota for claims the state spent in its previous quarter. Oz said the money could be unlocked, but only if the states can prove it was used for legitimate services. So that money's not going to get unlocked. I'm not going to get into it, but to say that California and Minnesota were doing some fraudulent shit with government dollars, what? That's crazy. The funding targeted Tuesday is linked to services at high risk for fraud, such as personal care services delivered in the home. As we have heard so many fraud cases about hospice care and daycares and all these things. There's so much fraud that's going on right now, but continuing. In Minnesota, said some of the deferred funding was linked to more than 3,000 providers who were disenrolled from Medicaid after a state audit. This raises questions about the claims tied to the providers before they were removed, he also said, noting that the majority of the $199 million in question was linked to the disenrolled providers. Again, that money is not getting unlocked. I think it's I don't think it's crazy for me to make such a bold statement here. However, providers in the state charge that some of the terminations were made in error. Okay. They made a mistake, administrative error, clerical error, hey, our bad. We can fix that. We can rectify that. Here's the discrepancies. All right, cool. We can acknowledge this. Okay, that's an option. 199 million is a bit of a that's not just fingering the numbers a little bit and pencil whipping some paperwork. That's moving big numbers here. But anyway, however, providers in the state, Maidenera, the state is enabling providers to continue to bill for Medicaid services while they appeal. This is the third time the administration has suspended funding in Minnesota, with previous actions totaling $351 million in Medicaid dollars. J.D. Vance has said that the state can rely on its rainy day fund to make up the difference while it proves the claims are legitimate. I got a weird feeling that Minnesota doesn't have much of a rainy day fund. I don't know that for a fact. I could be wrong, and they're sitting on like $5 billion as a rainy day fund. I got a hard time seeing it. Governor Tim Walz, another cuck in charge, says Minnesota is being politically targeted. Yeah, he's also done everything in his power to be the most incompetent governor they could have had, but okay. The Trump administration is cutting more money in healthcare than they've prosecuted for fraud. The math doesn't add up. That's what Waltz told Politico. I made it sound like he had actually a little gusto in his voice. I should soften the tone. I'm trying to do a caricature of him. Let me see if I can get it right on this one. They're not punishing fraudsters. They're punishing children, seniors, working families, and people with disabilities. Now, see, that was too much. I was like Mr. Garrison from South Park. I'm trying to find the happy medium. You know what I mean? Walls, he don't talk like this, but he also certainly doesn't talk like Lindsey Graham. I got to find the happy medium here.
He doesn't talk like a Southerner either. And he was a vice presidential candidate, and we've all already forgotten what he sounds like. Just like
right?
Tim Kaine. Yeah, they were saying, do you remember who Tim Kaine is? Oh, it's okay. You won't remember who Tim Walz is either.
Right.
A year from now.
Because I mean, to be honest, I didn't hear him talk a lot during the election either. We were too focused on America's drunk aunt trying to get up there. Well, I mean, did you get hit in the head with a coconut? Like I remember Kamala's disgusting voice a lot. I don't really remember Walz speaking that much. I know he did. I know he played clips of him. I'm just having a hard time really remembering it. But yeah, to your point, he probably just has like a very normal, non-regional, soft-spoken dialect. I don't know. Royce, I see the hand, brother. Go ahead.
So even besides what he sounds like, the only thing that people are going to remember is that he wanted to put tampons in boys' bathrooms.
Oh my
because
God.
For some reason they might menstruate because men can do everything that women can, apparently.
Because men can have periods too in Tim Walz's world. Yes, I remember that. He was pushing for tax dollars to go to putting tampon dispensers in men's restrooms. Yes. Oh man. How did I forget that?
That's crazy.
As soon as you said it, it all came back to me, but now his voice is coming back to me. No, it just sounds like a regular old white dude, if I remember correctly. But that's going to be
that's
his.
what he's going to be remembered for. Literally, that's going to be what he's remembered for. The idiot that wanted to do away with normal biology that everybody knows.
It's really crazy to me how the whole transgen whatever conversation. Y'all remember a couple years ago that was like the talking point. That was all anybody, like any news agency you watched, whatever, mainstream media, whatever, they had to interject the alphabet people into the conversation when nobody even was talking about it. And it was like, well, how does your statement include them? And it's like, wait, my statement was about like the NFL. What are you talking about, lady? Wait, okay. And now I can't tell you the last time that I heard anything about trans rights or whatever, aside from like police body cam footage when they're misgendering somebody. It's like, clearly this is a dude. It's actually ma'am, and it's really sad that you just dead named me. And it's like, all right, so go ahead and just put your hands behind your back. You're obviously mentally unstable. Let's just, it's crazy how the what the media decides is super important for us just kind of ebbs and flows based off of Soros dollars. But anyway, Norse, I see you, brother.
Have you seen the recent video of some trans dude going and freaking out on a cop?
You talking about the blue hair?
Yeah.
Dude, yes, that's actually what I'm referring to. Like
Yeah.
a whole spaz out. Oh, which like you're clearly a dude. Like
Mhm.
I'm not saying that to be insensitive or whatever. I'm not saying that to be just an asshole, but like stop. There's no need to do this. You could just calmly explain your case, and then to just freak out and have the whole screaming, crying fit and like resist. And it's like, dude, you went out of your way to make this so much worse for yourself. Something that didn't need to be anything, honestly. But like now it's a whole thing.
Yeah. Did you see the part where he got tased?
Yes, that's my point. Like, yo, you didn't have to do this. If you would have taken about 40% of your emotions just down right off the top, just take that down and just be a normal human being, just have a normal conversation. It could have been just no big deal. You could have gone home, you know?
Yeah.
But man, to freak out so bad and start screaming and freaking out and trying to fuck around with the cop to where now yo punk ass, and I'm saying punk ass because he's a punk, gets tased. Like, bro, what? Yep. They're not mentally stable, y'all. And I'm not saying that from a place of hatred. I'm saying it in the same way that, like, all right, body dysmorphia is a thing, right? If I am weighing $135 soaking wet, and then I look in the mirror and I see a 300-pound slob looking back at me, like, okay, my brain is incorrect. And it is okay for me to acknowledge that my brain is incorrect. But I also shouldn't, as a 135-pound 6'3" dude, which is not my weight. There's examples here, y'all. I shouldn't scream at somebody and like threaten violence for them fat shaming me because I think I'm fat. That is the level of mental hoops we are realistically talking about here. And me getting so enraged by a cop telling me to calm down and like asking for my driver's license. And when I'm like, I know it's this and this, and it's like, no, it says here you're 135 pounds. You don't know me. Like freaking out to the point where I get tased. That is mental instability. That person is unwell. That person is unsafe to be in society. They are a threat to themselves and others. Like, you see what I'm saying here? The transformer community, they're right there. Anyway. Whew. And this is going to go up on YouTube. So I'm sure that those bots are going to love that one, but I don't care. Y'all know me. If it gets kicked, it gets kicked. It is what it is, man. I'm here for the love of the game. Anyway, continuing on here. So CMS touts their fraud detection capabilities, yet has not provided data or explanation on how the deferral amount was calculated or what it was based on. Possibly the already existing fraud that has been shown and proven, and the fact that there's dollar bills that can't be accounted for in a reasonable way. Again, I'm not like super familiar with the case, but that's just, what I'm thinking right off the rip. It's the second time the administration has deferred California's funding, with a previous deferral resulting in more than $1 billion, big boy billion, y'all, in suspended funds. The latest deferral focuses on California's claims for in-home care programs, where CMS said spending growth has outpaced national trends. Has it though? Like, has it? The entire nation, which has people with hospice care and in-home care programs and all of that. And I understand California has a huge population. I can even appreciate that point for sure. Has the price in California for that care outpaced the rest of the nation to the point to where $1 billion has to be suspended because we can't trust that they're spending it where they say they're spending it? Yeah, y'all see what I'm saying? I got a hard time making 1 + 1 = 3 here. But all right, I'm not an economist. I'm not a healthcare provider. I'm a dude with a microphone. I don't know. But I could also understand why the government, the federal government, would withhold some funding until some answers can be given. That's all I'm saying. Today's announcement from Dr. Oz is the same recycled political stunt we've seen before. That's what the press office for Governor Gavin Newsom wrote on social media X this morning, or Tuesday rather, we are being targeted for political reasons. And because Dr. Oz doesn't understand that we are saving taxpayers' money by keeping seniors and people with disabilities out of far more expensive nursing homes. Again, I feel like these people are probably disenrolled and you're just spending the money anyway and pocketing the excess. But I guess we'll find out. Money from previous deferrals remains frozen while the states work with CMS, said Dan Brillman. This is the director of Medicaid and the Children's Health Insurance Program during the press conference. We hope to return funds as soon as they submit the documentation, but those are still ongoing. Tuesday's actions are the latest development in a nationwide crackdown by the Trump administration, which has honed in, I think that's supposed to be honed in, but okay, on fraud as a priority ahead of the 2026 midterms. Yeah, I'll bet he has honed in on this one before the midterms. Before I continue, I'm going to go ahead and stop and read the chat real quick before we get to the next article. I'm going to work at staying up on the chat, y'all, for sure. Tony says Canadians love orange juice. First of all, who doesn't? But yes, to your point, for sure. And then Norse Trucker right underneath that says, I hate orange juice. Bro, what? Norse Trucker, you must answer for yourself on this one. Do you hate oranges?
No, I don't hate oranges. I just hate orange juice. Too acidy for my stomach.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's like 4 times more sugary than a real orange.
Yeah.
Something like that.
They pour too much sugar into it, so I don't like it.
Okay, so it's not a taste issue. It's a acidity and that kind of issue.
Yeah, even though I drink like 4 Monsters a night, so
okay, that might be the issue, not the orange juice. What are we talking about? I love it. I absolutely love it. Moving on. U.S.-Canada trade is about $440 billion each way per year. Mostly orange juice. Just kidding. Minnesota is spending its precious budget prosecuting Shiloh Hendricks. Fill me in on this one.
You remember her about a year ago. By the way, the timestamp is 50 minutes in case you want to start bleeping this. But she was at a park, and a 9-year-old Somali kid, already with an ankle bracelet on, started stealing stuff out of her backpack when she was at the park with her toddler.
The 9-year-old had an ankle monitor on?
Yes.
Oh, that's
great. For
great.
stuff. Yeah. And she called this kid, and then
yep. Hold on.
Guardian.
That's
why I gave you the timestamp so you could bleep it out later.
I'm gonna write it down.
Minutes, I'll put it in the chat.
I got you. I'm gonna write it down. Go
anyway,
ahead.
The kid's father or guardian follows her around with a phone, taking a video, and say, "You call him? Why you call him?" She's like trying to get away and just not saying anything. Then she flips him off, and he says, "What? Say?" And then she says, "Okay, fuck you." And then she walks off. And she is getting prosecuted now for that because those are considered fighting words. So this isn't First Amendment protection, even though I'm pretty sure there's actually a jury here. She's only got needs one of them to hang the jury. I bet she'll get off. And even if she doesn't, she can appeal. But still, this is such a waste of time. It's such a waste of her life, really, just having to put up with this. And she wasn't going out picking a fight. She was the victim here, and they were following her, so I'm 100% on her side.
I have to ask now, Shiloh Hendricks, I can't tell just based off of the name. Is this somebody of the Caucasian persuasion?
Yeah, very Caucasian,
gotcha.
A little bit low class, lots of tattoos. She's 37, but
I don't know,
whatever.
man.
I'm on her side on this. This is just a legal issue, First Amendment. She wasn't picking a fight. She was just righteously upset, and I hope she wins. And she's being prosecuted. She's in trial right now. We'll know in maybe a few days how it turns out.
Okay, now I actually have to look up Shiloh Hendricks. I want to see a picture of her because now you're saying she's a little lower class, which, I mean, you know me, man. White single mama with tats. That's kind of my whole jam here. Let's see.
Not
my cup of joe. Way too skinny for me. But yeah, okay. And she's also blonde. Yeah, no, that's not a good look. Not a good look. Although I agree with you that like she was obviously the victim of this situation. But yeah, I mean, there's one way to just dump gas on a fire, and that would be it. Especially in Minnesota, ran by Walls' cuck ass. So like, yeah, that's not great. But man, okay. Moving forward, yeah, Minnesota's more worried about their own internal squabbles than they are about federal funding, I suppose. Maybe. For my third wish, I wish to be a woman. Poof. Nothing changed. Correct. Trans women are women. Double take scowls. That's good. That's hilarious. Nick Fuentes likes Gavin Newsom. Yeah, here's the deal about Nick Fuentes, also a cuck, friend of the show. And he is probably one of my least favorite talking heads in the game right now. There was a snippet of time where I thought, okay, he's saying controversial shit for the sake of saying controversial shit. And there's a level of respect to that, even if I disagree, right? Just being a hater and like being just a professional sipper of the haterade. Okay, I could at least understand to some degree. Your boy has flip-flopped on pretty much every conceivable issue that I could think of. He was like super on board with Candace and in her corner, then was super against her. Now he's calling her out for all of the same reasons that I called her out, for the record. It's interesting how he's like just catching up to that. And I'm not saying from me, I'm saying like people are aware where her funding comes from and why she's the most anti-Semitic, even though like her husband funds a lot of big things in Israel, but like that's not for now, you know, but it's things. But he is so wishy-washy. It blows my mind that he still has as solid of a listenership as he does. And again, if it is the same type of listenership that like Howard Stern had back in the day, the people that loved him listen to everything he put out because they just want to see what he was going to say next. Or flip that script, the haters were listening to every single episode. Why? Because they wanted to hear what he was going to say next. And like, if that's the route you're going, then at least in a certain level, game recognized game, I could appreciate it. I don't believe that's what Nick Fuentes is about. I think that he is a closeted incel. I think that he hates women. I think that he really, like, I don't think he's gay, but he'll definitely hold it in his mouth till the swelling goes down kind of thing. You know, like that. He's that guy. And if that's the case, dude, his numbers would probably skyrocket if he just came out of the closet. Like, realistically, he'd probably be accepted by a faction of conservative homosexuals that are like, they like the shit he's saying, but, you know, now that it's like he's waving the rainbow flag with them, solidarity kind of thing, I could see that only going good for him. I could be wrong. But
I think he's not gay, but
bro.
Like Napoleon and Hitler, he's too interested in politics and he has no interest in women.
Oh, Napoleon was not gay, dude. Have you read the letters that he wrote to his wife?
Well, yeah, he did not seem super interested in women, though. His first wife was Josephine. Then I think he was married to the Princess of Austria or something.
Yo, the Princess of Austria, there's correspondence between them when he was on the war trail. He was writing letters back that was like, yo, I don't want you to bathe till I get back. I want that shit to stank when I get home. And it's like, Napoleon. Oh boy, no, he was a fucking freak, dude. And I'm not saying that to like disparage him. I'm saying it because like, yo, what? Like, he wanted her to go a month without bathing so he can go face down in that shit because it was a whole thing. It's like a whole kink. But like, all right.
I guess so. But some guys are so into politics that even if they're not gay, they just have no time or interest in women. And I think Lindsey Graham also falls into that. Everyone makes fun of him saying he's gay, but I don't think he's actually gay. I joke about it.
I think he was.
That's literally true.
Oh, dude.
There's
a fraction.
You think James Buchanan was gay?
It's possible.
I'm thinking like possible, but I also get the impression some of these guys are just so into politics they got no time for women.
There is a real thing, and even historically speaking, of people, not just
Andrew Jackson thought he was. Sorry,
yeah, no, Andrew Jackson absolutely thought he was, but there's also like rival shit on the back end of that one. But so, all right, there is a fraction of the people out there that truly just they're not interested in anything of carnal knowledge. They're not gay. They're not into it. It's just not their thing. However, I would say that goes very much against very baseline human nature, right? So to say that a dude is, or a female, either one, is like so invested in their work that they don't even take the time to seek out even a hooker. You know what I mean? Like even traditionally back in the day, that's a crazy thing to say. Or even if you're like some sort of like actually no, I was gonna say like a high functioning autistic person, but no, autists like that shit too, I would assume. There's a whole thing about like level in the spectrum and shit. So like I'm assuming, but I don't know. Lindsey Graham, for a man in his position, if you're not into sex, dude, just get like a lavender marriage, or what's it called? Is that a lavender marriage?
Yeah, I don't know. There's something like that. I know what you mean, though.
Yeah, you marry a chick, y'all are home. Do like Hillary and Bill. Like, I don't even know if Chelsea Clinton is both of their daughter, to be honest. I don't think they've slept in the same bed since Arkansas. Maybe even.
This is a real conspiracy theory going back that Chelsea's real dad is a guy named Webster Hubble. Hubble.
And I think there's actually some validity to that. Now that's definitely, that came from Hillary. Them genes is in there. That's a fact.
Yeah. My dad believes it. He said, just look at pictures of him. It's obvious.
I'm just saying.
I don't know, maybe.
I don't know, but it's be in a political space, have a marriage that you're not even into your spouse, you're never in like the same room and shit, at least to say you got one on paper, that's one thing. Lindsey Graham to be a confirmed bachelor for that long with that much wealth and in DC for that long. Yeah. And the only reason why I'm saying that, not just to pick on Lindsey Graham, for the record, I think a lot of our politicians are closeted. And I say that because you remember that pizza, the website that talks about like every time that the pizza joints in and around the Pentagon have crazy activity at like midnight, it's the night before some wild shit goes on. There's another website that shows attendance at gay bars in DC. On the nights when the attendance at a gay bar is like almost completely dead, is usually around the same time when the pizza sales are skyrocketing around DC when some wild shit's going down. That would lead me to believe that the majority of the people going to gay bars in DC are a lot of our policymakers. I could be wrong, but the statistics have yet, I think both of these websites are like, they've got like a 99% accuracy rate. So, I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, no, definitely the trans community, which is where that comment was started from, they're not real. They're not real, y'all. Royce also says orange Jews. Yeah. We just found a Jew that found the spray tan salon or something, I guess. Anyway. All right. So we are caught up on the chat. We are going to continue with the things and the stuff. Now, the White House, the House has adopted a $95 billion budget plan, and Speaker Johnson's got some things to say on it. Let's listen in. Let's learn together. This just happened a few hours ago, y'all.
We want to go out live right now. Capitol Hill, Speaker Mike Johnson remarks right now.
Build the arsenal of freedom. And the budget resolution that unlocks our third reconciliation bill, which of course is Republicans' best shot to get as much of the Save America Act into law as possible, in addition to funding our national defense and our farmers. Republicans support our troops, our farmers, and election security. We're the only team in Washington that does. Many of you doubted our success. Many of you standing around me in the Skaggle right now said, let me read you a sample of the headlines. Quote, House Republicans face final week gauntlet. Another said, Johnson's rocky sprint to recess. Another said it was Johnson's make or break week. Despite nearly every Democrat voting against everything I just read you, House Republicans delivered. Now, many of you like to say that major legislating can't happen in an election year. We just proved you wrong. This week, we continue to deliver for the people, and we're going to continue that streak all the way through the end of this year and into the next Congress. We're increasingly confident that we will hold and grow this majority in the House. We must, because you're seeing a demonstration of the two sides, the divergent views for America. We had been saying that this was an election that was shaping up as a contest between common sense and crazy. And now it is literally, in many sectors around the country, common sense versus communism. We have done our job. We'll continue to do it. Tomorrow, House Republicans will return to their districts armed with a proven track record of success and in these new legislative victories. Democrats, on the other hand, have to go home. They have to answer for quite a bit. They have to answer for why they voted against funding our troops, against funding the government, against common sense policies like voter ID and proof of citizenship, and against a popular ban on members of Congress purchasing individual stocks. We have 3.5 months to go until this election. We are going to run through the tape. We're going to continue to demonstrate here every day as we did this week. The Republicans are on the side of the American people, on the side of common sense, on the side of America. The Democrats simply are not. That's a sad reality of where we are, and everybody gets to make a choice in the upcoming election. We're very much looking forward to that. Thank you.
All right, Speaker Johnson making remarks before the House enters into recess. They're starting tomorrow, but the House just voted 216 to 212 to pass a National Defense Authorization Act that takes a huge step towards meshing the U.S. and Israeli military. So again, we'll be keeping an eye on those details here for you on Live Now from Fox. Stay right.
So speaking of, and we don't have to speak on it too much because I haven't heard confirmed one way or another as of time of recording. Last I heard, the votes were looking very strong that there was going to be like a merger of technology between the United States and Israel. Say what you want about that, feel however you want about that. That does look like that's going to be how this shakes out. I don't know. I do know that that's going to be to the chagrin of a lot of people in America right now. But as far as this is concerned, apparently this $95 billion budget plan is probably going to go through. So here we are with it. Anyway, let's go international for just a second, talking about international relations and spending and military and things. Iran attacks Bahrain, Kuwait, and Jordan after U.S. hits Iranian nuclear site. So, for anybody who has not been in the loop, the ceasefire didn't hold. The other ceasefire didn't hold. The talks have fallen through. Shocker. Oh my God, who could have seen it happening? The Middle East is still not going to have some sort of peaceful resolution. And to be honest, I don't really see one. I don't genuinely think there's going to be a peaceful resolution here. I also am not convinced that we're going to have boots on the ground in Iran still. I know the Cajun Night group have gotten together and we've debated if this is going to happen or not. There are so many different political and military talking heads all over the place that have made their own speculations. I could be wrong here. I'm not an expert on any of this, but just going off of the past and how everything is shucking out thus far, I just don't see it. With that being said, and yes, I do know that there are U.S. service members that have been hit. We are going to talk about them after this. But as of this moment, Iran is attacking their neighbors. They actually just hit Kuwait pretty hard and hit a desalination plant. So, and I understand they were trying to hit U.S. bases in Kuwait and in Bahrain, and in Jordan. Okay, yeah, they've been doing that. But now, either A, they're really bad at hitting their targets and they're accidentally hitting civilian infrastructure, or B, they're so pissed off at these other countries for allowing America to operate out of them that they are actively attempting to hit civilian infrastructure. Either way it goes, that's not a good move, dude. It's never a good move. But all right, cool. Let's read in on this. Regional outcry grows as Kuwait says Iranian attack hits a power and water plant for the second time in 2 days, causing a fire. Iran has fired drones and missiles at Kuwait, Bahrain, and Jordan after an 8th consecutive night of attacks by the U.S. on Iranian cities, including on the partly built Darkoyan nuclear facility. Bahrain, Kuwait, and Jordan reported multiple waves of Iranian strikes on Sunday, with Kuwaiti authorities saying one attack started a fire at a power and water plant. Now that's ironic. A water plant on fire. I understand that there's like levels to that nuance, but I'm just saying that's actually kind of funny. Moving forward here, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, said it delivered heavy blows to U.S. bases in Jordan and Kuwait, while the Iranian army said it targeted U.S. ammunition depot at Camp al-Adiri and air defense radars at the Ali al-Salem Air Base, which hosts U.S. personnel. Kuwait's military announced confronting Iranian attacks and reported damage to a second water and power plant, while sirens also sounded in Bahrain and Jordan. Bahrain later said it thwarted Iranian missile and drone attacks, and Jordan said it shot down 3 or 4 Iranian missiles. Or 3 of 4, one slipped by. You always have one squirter that gets by. Even our systems, y'all. And it's not a secret that America has the best air defense systems on Earth. It's not a 100% accurate thing. Like, you're going to have, especially with like rate of fire and everything, it takes time to reload, whatever. Something is going to get by. It's good to have, the best statistics of shooting shit down before it hits you, but like eventually something is going to make it through. And that's the same for the Golden Dome, same for the Iron Dome in Israel. You can only do so much, is all I'm saying. Anyway, the 3 countries which host U.S. military installations have borne the brunt of Iran's retaliatory attacks since hostilities resumed this month, all but shattering an interim ceasefire agreement signed by Tehran and Washington last month. Yeah, that interim ceasefire, those never really stick around, do they? Now, the Darkovan nuclear plant, the Iranian barrage, followed a series of overnight U.S. strikes on Iran that Washington said aimed to punish IRGC forces responsible for earlier attacks in Jordan that killed 2 U.S. service members. The U.S. military said the strikes also sought to degrade Iran's ability to threaten commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. Obviously, as it always does, because that's their one thing. The strikes hit areas in Iran's Hormozgan and Khuzestan.
Yeah, Hormozgan and
Khuzestan, excuse me.
Hormozgan is way in the south, but it's right on the strait. And Khuzestan, I don't think it's on the water, but it's way in the west. It might be on the water.
Okay.
That was where one of the F-15 or A-10s got shot down earlier this year, too. Khuzestan, it's way in the west.
Gotcha. Okay. As well as Qasem Island, according to Iranian media reports. They were less intense than the previous nights of U.S. attacks, according to Al Jazeera's reporting. Iran's nuclear energy agency later said the U.S. strikes had hit the under-construction Darkovan nuclear plant in the country's southwest and condemned it as a breach of international law. It is a war. What international law are they talking about? But all right. Qasem Garibabadi, Iran's deputy foreign minister, called the U.S. attack on the Darkovan plant in the southwestern Khuzestan province, a dangerous assault, well, obviously, on Iran's civilian infrastructure and promised to respond to defend its national security. The International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, said it was looking into reports of overnight attacks, adding that the facility was still in the early stages of construction and contained no nuclear material when inspectors last visited. Now, I don't know when it was that the inspectors last visited. I'm not going to claim to know, but all right, we can work off that information, sure. So the Gulf states have condemned Iran. Kuwait, meanwhile, accused Iran of targeting civilian and vital facilities in the country, saying Tehran had hit a power and desalinization plant for the second time in as many days. It said the heinous Iranian aggression caused a fire in some facilities of the station. The Iranian attacks on Kuwait, as well as Bahrain and Jordan, drew swift condemnation from across the Middle East. Obviously, most of the Middle East does not get down with Iran. We've talked about that many times. In a phone call with Jordan's deputy prime minister, Qatari prime minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman, oh, Jesus Christ, I'm not doing that. Fucking Qatar prime minister, the Sheikh, expressed his country's strongest condemnation of the Iranian attacks and urged Washington and Tehran to return to diplomacy and implement the interim ceasefire agreement signed on June 16th. The UAE condemned the attacks in the strongest terms and reiterated its support for all measures aimed at safeguarding the security and safety of targeted countries. Jordan summoned Iran's ambassador following the attack on its territory, demanding that the unjustified attacks stop. Jordan's Ministry of Foreign and Expatriate Affairs also pledged Amman's solidarity with the Gulf's neighbors and said it supports the measures they take to protect their sovereignty, and security. Lebanese Prime Minister Nawaf Salam spoke with his Kuwaiti and Jordanian counterparts and condemned the Iranian strikes, saying they constitute a blatant violation of the security and territorial integrity of Kuwait and Jordan and a direct threat to the security of the Arab region. Yeah, this is not... It's a whole lot of talk, dude. Like, let's just be real. It's a whole lot of the leaders saying the same shit they've been saying for months. They're pissed. Are they going to do anything about it? No. Condemn it. Strongly worded letters. I'd be shocked if even a tariff gets spoken of. It's not going to matter. It's not going to matter. The Strait of Hormuz. Separately, there were signs on Sunday of further turmoil in the Strait of Hormuz, where the IRGC said it blocked 2 ships that had tried to use an unsafe route, quote unquote. It said both had been involved in an unspecified accident, quote unquote. So the IRGC, the terrorist group, paramilitary organization, stopped these ships from going down an unsafe route, and then both of them suffered an accident. It's possible they hit one of the mines and they were actually trying to stop them from hitting them. It's also possible that those accidents weren't exactly accidental. Both are viable. Let's read more. The status of the strait has proven to be a major point of contention following the U.S.-Iranian memorandum of understanding signed last month. Dude, I'm so tired. The memorandum of understanding. The the temporary ceasefire. It's fancy words, y'all. It's fancy words. We got words on paper, and dudes are signing them with pen. That's how you know it's serious. Y'all understand out loud how dumb that sounds, right? Real shit. It takes action to actually force capitulation, and from Iran or the United States. Just so we're clear here, I understand that obviously I have my own biases, but Iran is not going to get America to back down by existing. America is not going to be able to bomb Iran into submission. Like, that's just not going to happen. At this point, dude, never mind. I don't want to go on it. I really don't, because I'm going to piss people off. Anyway. The memorandum of understanding signed last month, which extended the April ceasefire and agreed to the gradual reopening of the waterway. Iranian officials said Tehran has the right to continue managing shipping through the strait. The U.S. says Iran does not control the waterway and has reimposed its own blockade of Iranian ports. It's almost like we've seen this movie before. Paul Musgrave, professor of the government at Georgetown University in Qatar, said Iran has the upper hand in terms of commitment to the war, which it sees as existential. Well, yeah, it's their home turf that's getting the shit bombed out of it, obviously. Since February, the asymmetry on how interests have been conducted has been clear. The regime in Tehran is fighting an existential war. The United States and Israel are fighting a war over policy choices. All right. Also, I don't know this. Tony, help me out here. Has Israel fired a single shot towards Iran?
Not recently, but they did in March, a whole bunch. In fact, I think they were the ones who actually fired the missiles that killed the Ayatollah and his family, the Israelis in particular.
Was it their I thought that was our rockets.
Well, we fired others. American rockets did land in Shah Bay and many other places. But this is just something I heard recently, that the Israelis, their missiles killed the Ayatollah, and Iran and Israel both exchanged missile strikes for like the next month.
Okay.
So yeah, Israel definitely did fire them at Iran.
Okay, because I got to tell you, man, from all the shit that I'm seeing, Israel has not done shit towards this whole conflict. It seems like this is an Iran-America war, but Israel's like on the paper too kind of thing.
Oh, well, Israel's very tied up with Lebanon right now. In
Yeah,
fact, I wish I could post it, but there's these X memes of Itamar Ben-Gvir saying Israel doesn't have the capacity to fight Iran right now, and other people like American right-wingers making fun of him, saying, "Oh, even Israel is doing the 'I'm not fucking dying Israel, I'm not fucking dying for Israel' meme right
dude,
now."
that's hilarious.
But
And
they are fighting for Lebanon. I think this was primarily for Lebanon,
yeah,
actually. Israel really cares about Lebanon way more than Iran. Iran's like 1,000 miles away. And they
right.
hate the Iranian government too, for sure, for plenty of other reasons. But southern Lebanon is part of greater Israel. Cana, where Jesus did his first miracle, is in Lebanon, but it's in the region south of the yellow line that Israel's laying claim to right now, and they may get it, but
Yeah.
they really need to try hard to hold on to it. Anyway,
Yeah.
there's a few things in this article that weren't mentioned. There was the U.S. struck an Iran desalination plant in a place called Jask in Iran, but Iran only depends on desalination for about 1 or 3% of its water. It's not
Right.
much. Those Gulf Arab countries rely for desalination for like 20 to 50% of their water. Something I'm just ballparking it.
Sure.
So bombing an Iranian desalination plant, giving them an excuse to retaliate in kind is just really not a good idea because it hurts the Gulf Arabs way more than it hurts Iran. And you just gave them an excuse to do it.
Yeah, but you also just, all right, I hear what you're saying. So America hitting civilian infrastructure in the form of a desalinization plant, I see that it's not that big of a, pun intended, it's not going to make that many ripples or waves. You know what I'm saying? Fine, fine.
Uh-huh.
But them hitting a Kuwaiti desalinization plant, that's not going to hurt American forces in Kuwait. That's going to hurt the Kuwaitis. If anything, that's going to piss
Definitely.
off these other countries and get them more on board with backing us or possibly even getting involved, which I don't, that's the other part too. I don't know what it would take. And I'm not saying this should happen. I'm not familiar enough with the Arab inner nuances of their own internal geopolitics here. But Jordan, Qatar, UAE, Kuwait, pretty much the majority of the Middle East doesn't enjoy or like Iran for religious reasons. I'm talking about like the regime that's in charge right now. So if they have their opportunity to strike now and get rid of this thorn in their side, what's holding them back? Is it that they don't have the military capability to really help out in any way? Is it that since America hadn't put boots on the ground, none of them are willing to put boots on the ground? Is it that, it's more like an annoyance and it's not really like the bane of their existence as the media is making it out to be? What would it take to get the Saudi Arabians and the Qataris and all of them to actually start doing some military action against Iran in solidarity with us?
I don't think anything will. And these Gulf states, their governments are very rich, but their governments, they're presiding over a somewhat larger population that's mostly Shiite, mostly aligned with Iran, but the governments are aligned with the United States and Israel, especially UAE, slightly less so Qatar, slightly more so Saudi Arabia, and slightly more so Kuwait. But none of those countries have significant military, and what little military they do have is provided by the United States, and the United States has massive military bases in Al Udeid and all the other places mentioned in Kuwait and elsewhere. Um,
Yeah.
but this is part of the reason Iran is hitting them so hard, even outside the military bases. You can kind of imagine what if China had built a bunch of military bases in Mexico and the US government had been screaming about it for decades, saying, Mexico, don't let them in. Don't let them in. And then one day missiles go flying and some US missiles hit Mexican civilian targets. Well, gee, why are you hitting these innocent Mexican civilian targets? Well, we screamed at you not to let China go in there, and now you're bearing some of the consequences. And I would liken this a little bit also to when William the Conqueror conquered England, and he treated the English population or the Saxon population not very well. And this happened a lot in medieval warfare where you drive home to the population, your king couldn't protect you, so he is not worthy of your respect. So we're your new overlords, deal with it. And that's kind of what Iran is telling these Gulf states. America couldn't protect you, and you were stupid to trust them. So just, eat crow now. Now is your moment to eat crow. That's kind
Yeah,
of what's going on right now.
that's fair enough. I mean, and I see what you're saying as far as them not really having the military assets to throw in to the conversation. I could see that for sure. Um, I guess the only retort I would have to your example is that, and I know it was a contrived example, I know that, but I will say that America wouldn't miss the targets because, simply put, we don't do that. I'm just saying. We don't really miss our targets whenever we develop a package and send them. But for your point, I see what you mean for sure.
Yeah, we
But
definitely hit the places, the coordinates we mean to hit.
yeah,
Sometimes the thing that's actually there is not what we intended to be there or what we thought was there.
sometimes our intel is a
But
little dated, and the weapons cache has since been turned into a school. That does happen on
Mhm.
occasion.
But in general, I agree. We don't miss. When
Yeah,
the GPS says it's going to go there, it's going to go there.
yeah. But
And
for your
maybe it's not
example
the
is
same for their missiles.
right. But for your example, as far as like if China was to set up military bases all around our border, and we told them don't let them do it, and then we finally had to take action, I can see what you're saying for sure. But it's not
Mhm.
like America just built these bases either. Like we've had bases in the Middle East for a good while now. I mean, hell, we could
That's
even
true. Yeah, going back to the 60s or 70s, I think.
right. And I mean, if you look at every attack that has ever happened on U.S., well, I'm not going to say every, aside from like Afghanistan, where there was internal struggle and shit like that. But pretty much for the most part, if you could start from the Beirut bombing all the way through to now, pretty much every service member that has died in the Middle East, the bullet that was fired at them or the group that was fighting us or whatever had some sort of ties or connections or approvals from Iran. And not every, I know there's nuances to that. Like the Taliban didn't really have connections, although they had they got a thumbs up from Iran from time to time. It's not like that wasn't like the big funder of it, you know what I mean? But like
Uh,
it's worth mentioning they've kind of been the asshole of the Middle East for a good minute now.
okay, well, the Israeli invasion of Lebanon in 1982 was what created Hezbollah, and Hezbollah attacked the U.S. Marines barracks in, I believe, early 1983. There was a lot going on in those few months, like the assassination of their prime minister. And Iran probably knew about that, and that killed 200, how many? 240 U.S. Marines.
Yeah.
Then there was another attack in a place called Khobar Towers. I think that was in Kuwait or Saudi Arabia, and that was blamed on Iran, but it was actually bin Ladenites. And somebody can go back and double check that. That was in 1996, I think.
Well, yeah, but bin Laden's followers, Al Qaeda, was being funded and set up by Iran.
I would disagree with that.
The Taliban wasn't, but Al Qaeda absolutely had some support from Iran.
I don't agree with that, but I can look it up.
I
Al
would,
Qaeda is extremely Sunni, and they don't like Shiites at all.
yeah, but if we're talking about anti-Western powers, enemy of my enemy is my friend. We've seen Shia and Sunni come together, at least to fuck over the West. That's not a new thing. Hell, they come together a lot to fuck over the Kurds. So, I
Yeah,
mean,
like Hamas is Sunni. Yeah, Hamas is Sunni, and they've gotten some support from Iran in the past.
yeah,
But I don't think of Al Qaeda as an Iranian backed organization. If anything, they're more CIA backed. Or they were
they,
before 9/11, and then,
yeah,
after 9/11, a lot after 9/11.
yeah.
But no, Iran has been fighting Al Qaeda in Syria. They fought against ISIS. They did the heavy lifting against ISIS back in 2015 to like 2017.
I don't think I've ever heard of Iranians fighting ISIS. I know they weren't super fond of them. I don't think I heard of them actually having any kind of like gunfights or anything like that with ISIS fighters.
Yeah, they did have gunfights, a lot of them. That's what Qasem Soleimani was doing in those days.
That's the leader of Syria right now.
Soleimani was head of the Quds Force from Iran, and Trump
Yes.
had him assassinated.
Sorry, I'm thinking of the former
Controversial
Taliban
that
fighter that's now the president of Syria. My bad.
Yeah, he's had a couple names, Muhammad al-Jawlani and then Ahmed al-Shara.
Yeah.
That's the head of Syria right now. And he used to be an Al-Qaeda in Iraq guy, and he was in an American prison like 20 years ago. But he was let out, and one thing led to another, and now he's the president of Syria.
One thing led to another. You go from damn near going to Gitmo to being invited to the Oval Office. It's a weird chain of events that goes down when it gets to the Middle East, you know. But anyway,
Yeah.
keeping up with the chat here. The first man said the tariffs look like it will affect the auto industry and the most. We import a lot of parts from Canada. Yeah, I could see that for sure. And then Tony, you said Jess Stanley, the Epstein Snow White rapist, will be questioned in Congress tomorrow, and nobody knows or cares. This is the first I'm hearing of it. Holy
Yeah,
shit!
everybody Google Jess Stanley, and maybe you'll get it. He's pretty much dead to rights if you read any of the Epstein emails, because yeah, there was some girl that dressed up as Snow White for him to have sex with her, and there's emails about it where he says, "Oh yeah, I fucked her. Oh yeah, she was
Yeah.
great."
Oh,
And
banker
I
and
guess he's
former CEO of Barclays.
or just Staley. Oh, I probably got his name wrong. I think I was proceeding off of a typo.
I might have fat fingered that myself, to be honest with you, but yeah.
Well,
Okay.
Google's saying, "Did you mean just Staley?" And it's like, you know what? I've seen it both ways. That's probably the right way if Google is telling us.
Wow. This dude here, he spent 34 years at JP Morgan Investment Bank after moving to Blue Mountain Capital in 2013, and he became the CEO of Barclays in December 2015.
Okay, well,
Yeah,
listeners
wow.
can go ahead and Google that. If this is coming out tomorrow, you won't miss it.
Yeah, no doubt. If you're listening to this right now, go ahead and check out the situation with old Jess Staley. I know I'm going to be checking it out. Anyway, all right. Moving forward, continuing with the Middle East situation, we have 4 U.S. service members that were recently killed in the Iran war, and this is going to be a little thing about them. I do believe that it is within all of us to at least remember them and honor them.
Members killed in the Iran war arrived at Dover Air Force Base this afternoon. President Trump and Defense Secretary Hegseth were among members of the administration who attended. 3 troops died during an Iranian attack on an airbase in Jordan. A 4th was killed during the controlled explosion of an attack drone at a northern Iraq airbase. As these soldiers return home, we'd like to tell you more about the lives they lived and the legacies they leave behind. 19-year-old Army Private Isabella Gonzalez is originally from Carrollton, Texas, and was killed almost exactly a year into her military service. She was stationed in Germany, but volunteered for an assignment in Jordan, according to CBS News Texas. Her friends say they're incredibly proud of her.
I also want people to know that what a selfless person she was. She was always willing to help us out when we had our issues. She was always there for us. Jokingly, she would make us go hug a tree when we were sad, and obviously that for some reason that made us happy. And she was just so full of life.
Army First Lieutenant Tyler James Bean was 25 years old from Ava Beach, Hawaii. He originally joined the Hawaii National Guard before moving to the Utah National Guard and eventually becoming commissioned as an officer in the U.S. Army, according to CBS News affiliate Hawaii News Now. His parents released a statement which included how proud they are of him and said, quote, as a leader, he never wavered in putting his soldiers first, mentoring them, sharing his love of finance, and pushing the value of education every chance he got. Army Sergeant Angel Rampersad was 28 years old and from Ozone Park, New York. She enlisted in 2019 and served as a signal operations support specialist working with military communication systems. Her family called her a, quote, gentle giant in a statement and said she stood up for those who couldn't fight for themselves, a defender, a friend. She loved her family fiercely and will live on in the hearts of everyone she touched. Army Sergeant Michael Emmanuel Swinton of Fayetteville, North Carolina, died during a controlled attack drone detonation in Iraq. His death is being investigated by the Pentagon. The U.S. Army said the 30-year-old enlisted as an air defense early warning operator in 2017. His mother told North Carolina local news station WRAL he leaves behind a wife, 6-year-old son, and 4-year-old daughter. She said in part, he will be forever missed, forever honored, and forever our hero.
All right. Yes, indeed. We are moving forward with that. Now, I don't know. With these 4 added, is the death toll over 20 that we have lost?
I heard it's 18 now.
It's okay. So it's still under 20. And Iran has lost. I don't think it'd be crazy to say thousands.
I looked it up. It's probably 3,500.
Yeah. Okay. I'm still liking our KD ratio on this one. All right. So moving forward here, CBS News, Pentagon identifies the 4th service member killed in recent days as U.S. carries out more strikes. So we already kind of watched and learned about that. So I did want to read this part, though. Here's what to know about the Iran war. The U.S. military released the names of the 3rd soldier who is believed to have been killed in an Iranian strike on a base in Jordan and identified service members who was killed in Iraq, bringing the total number of U.S. service deaths to 18. Okay, so there it is. The American forces launched an 11th consecutive night of strikes on Iran after Iran said it targeted U.S. assets in Kuwait, Bahrain, and Jordan and a vessel in the Strait of Hormuz on Tuesday. So they keep using defense secretary. That would be war secretary. Pete Hegseth told lawmakers the Iran war has cost about $37.5 billion. Multiple sources familiar with the matter said the total cost could be far higher. Yeah, I think it's going to be higher when it's all said and done. You know what I mean? They got a running tab going on. Anyway, we don't really need to read the entirety of this article, but I did think that those key points were worth mentioning. Continuing on here. U.S. will bomb and destroy Iranian bridges, power plants if ships are targeted. Trump warns this. This came out 4 hours ago as of time of recording. Let's listen to what old Donnie T's got to say on this.
But first, breaking tonight, President Trump says the U.S. will destroy one bridge or power plant in Iran for each time the Islamic Republic shoots at a ship in the Strait of Hormuz. The president issuing a warning on social media before attending today's dignified transfer ceremony for the U.S. service members recently killed in the conflict. Late today, we learned Yemen's Iran-backed Houthi rebels say they have targeted 2 Saudi oil tankers. We have Fox team coverage. Steve Harrigan's in Tel Aviv and Israel with the latest on the threats and counter threats in the region. But we begin with White House correspondent Aisha Hasni on the North Lawn tonight with the latest. Good evening, Aisha.
And Bright, good evening to you. A dignified transfer is a difficult task for any commander-in-chief, and this one in particular could lead to a widening of the conflict with Iran.
President Trump silently saluting at Dover Air Base this morning as the remains of 4 service members are solemnly brought home. The latest casualties of the nearly 5-month U.S. conflict with Iran.
For me, it's one of the hardest things to do as a president.
First Lieutenant Tyler James Feehan, slated to be married when he returned from his deployment. Private Isabella Gonzalez, just 19 years old, told her high school English teacher she was enlisting to pay for college. Both killed in action during an Iranian missile and drone attack at an airbase in Jordan. Sergeant Angel S. Rampersad, believed to have also been killed in that same attack. Her body crushed and buried under the rubble, but not yet positively identified. And Sergeant Michael Emmanuel Swinton, a husband and father of a 4-year-old daughter and a 6-year-old son, described by his mother as a jokester with a contagious laugh. He died at Erbil Air Base in Iraq during a controlled detonation of a downed Iranian attack drone. President Trump spending private moments with the families before the transfer.
We love you. We love your child. All you can do is throw out your heart.
Afterwards, the president flew Lieutenant Feehan's family back to Georgia on his way to a rally in Marietta.
We will carry Tyler's memory in our hearts forever.
Trump now threatening to hit civilian infrastructure targets closer to the Iranian capital of Tehran. Writing on Truth Social, from this point forward, anytime the Islamic Republic of Iran shoots at a ship in the Strait of Hormuz, the United States will bomb and destroy one bridge or power plant, including those located next to or in the capital city of Tehran. Trump also vowing to bomb Iran's Pickaxe Mountain, believed to be shielding an underground nuclear facility. An indication the conflict is widening, despite the loss of blood and treasure and mounting political pressure at home.
Americans don't want high gasoline prices, but they're not against the war.
And Brett, tonight the administration has announced that the president has officially agreed to, just signed off on a nuclear agreement with Saudi Arabia. This would allow the kingdom to build a civilian nuclear facility for energy. The catch here is that American companies will be a part of building this out, which would mean billions of dollars in profits for American companies. It has to be approved by Congress first, where undoubtedly lawmakers will raise concerns about whether this could open the door to potentially other countries gaining access down the road to nuclear weapons.
All right, so just to circle back to what old Donnie T said, half of his statement was accurate. Americans don't want high gas prices. This is true. I think we can all agree with that. I don't think anybody on earth does, as a matter of fact. To say that America is not against the war, that is a dubious claim. At best, I would classify that as highly dubious. I personally don't know a single American who is in favor of this. Listen, and I know even within our chat here tonight, we have people that do support the Ayatollah and people that don't. Here's the deal. Speaking on behalf of just myself here, look, I want every member of the IRGC to be brutally strung up, for sure. I want the Ayatollah to be removed. I want Persians to take back Iran. I want these things. That being said, do I want American forces to be the thing that makes that happen? Not necessarily. If you want to do that, I would highly recommend the CIA doing their thing and, kickstarting an insurrection, arming the civilian population, letting the Persians take back their land for themselves like that. I'm down with that. I'm good with that. I'm not exactly in favor of a boots on the ground. I think I've been about saying the same thing on this since the beginning. I don't necessarily want American troops to have a actual deployment into Iran. I do think that it's been too long since we had a real war. America only does good when we go to war with people. That's not my rule. That's the way America's done business since the beginning. So, all right, I'm good with that in a certain regard, but yeah, I don't think Trump actually has any kind of sense for what the civilian population of America actually wants anymore. Nor do I think he cares for the matter. Just keeping it all.
Yeah, I just Googled it real quick. I'm getting numbers anywhere from 20 to 33% approval for the war with Iran right now among Americans.
Right.
I can't really get much more in depth because my computer is glitching like a mofo.
Yeah.
As I declared earlier, but
I would
whatever. I'm
say,
trying to be as helpful as possible.
No, for sure. I would say even a third. To say that a third of the American population wants this war, I think that is a very gracious and high estimation. Actually, I would venture to say it's probably closer to 10%, and those 10% are boomers that are glued to Fox News.
Oh yeah, I'd say it's high among the boomers, and there's still a bunch of them.
Yeah,
there's a big age difference. Yeah, for Thomas Massey versus Ed Galvine, it was like a 30% pro Galvine turnout for the boomers and up, and 30% pro Massey, Gen X and below.
Yeah.
There's a big age divide right now, especially on the right. Maybe on the left too. I don't know.
The divide on the left I don't think it's an age thing. I think it's a socioeconomic thing, which they're both on the left, but the ones that are these wealthy elitist type Democrats have nothing on the same page with the inner city people on the left. So there's that kind of divide. And it's eating itself alive from the inside out for other reasons. The right is eating itself alive for internal struggles and strifes, basically mostly policy shit. It's not so much of a socioeconomic thing, but I don't know. Anyway, yeah, Trump is, I've said it before. I think he's completely lost the plot. I stand on that. I still believe that. But anyway, all right, let's go here as we're talking about the cool shit and we're still talking about foreign things. The first Polish F-35 was built at Kameri's FACO, F-A-C-O. It was flown. I think this is cool. So for those that don't know, the F-35 has been an American platform, American built. We sell the F-35 to people, but now Poland, aka Little European Texas, has now actually produced their first F-35. and they've flown it, and they got it. Now, it doesn't have the same, it has close to the same capabilities as one of the American F-35s. Maybe not all the bells and whistles, but it's still got a lot of the same capabilities. So it's very possible that Poland's been gearing up for a Russian invasion for a while. Will that come? I don't think so. But either way, they're bracing for impact regardless. I like it. I like Poland having all of the shit. I want us to arm them even deeper and heavier. I absolutely love it. I love Poland, man, especially these days, but not going to spend too much time on it. I thought it was cool, so I thought it was worth a mention. Anyway, talking about the Houthis, however, the Houthis have announced a blockade of Saudi Arabia ships. Ships are rerouting to avoid Bab al-Mandeb Strait. So this is an interesting one here. So the Houthi rebels, some call them freedom fighters, some call them terrorists. I'm not here to cast a judgment. Let's just call them the Houthi rebels. Have announced a complete maritime blockade of Saudi Arabia on July 20th. In response, a growing number of vessels are rerouting to avoid this Bab al-Mandeb Strait, the southern Red Sea checkpoint near Houthi-controlled territory, demonstrating that the shipping industry is taking the threat seriously. However, the Houthis have not yet targeted vessels or port infrastructure to enforce their blockade. I don't think this is because they don't have the capability to. I mean, the Houthi rebels are not exactly like a respectable fighting force. No, but they're an annoyance, and I do believe that they could hit a ship from the shore. Even if they fire 20 things at it and only one hits it, it's enough to where the international shipping community is trying to avoid the bullshit if they can help it. Because just like we saw with the Strait of Hormuz, dude, insurance companies are not going to insure these ships or their cargo if they are knowingly going into dangerous waters. If the Houthis are making this water seem dangerous enough, these insurance companies are not going to insure the freight or their cargo. So yeah, they're going to avoid it. Continuing on here, July 16th, Reuters reported that Iranian leadership had told the Houthis to close Bab al-Mandeb if the U.S. struck Iranian power infrastructure. Obviously, we did. After Trump threatened to attack Iran's power grid on July 15th in an interview, Iranian officials accused him of following through on the threat overnight on July 17th. However, the Houthis are portraying the blockade as a response to Saudi-imposed air and maritime blockades, which have been in place for roughly a decade to stop support to the Iran-backed terror group during Yemeni civil war, which that's been going on for decades. The Houthis followed their announcement with an email to shippers that, according to Reuters, said, quote, vessels are banned from loading or discharging cargo at or from any Saudi ports. The message went on to threaten the vessels transporting Saudi cargo may be subject to targeting in any location within the operational reach of the Yemeni armed forces. Okay, so this is a question, and Tony, I would love to get your 2 cents on this here. Would this be enough for Saudi Arabia to do something?
Yeah, I think Saudi Arabia, they've been attacking Yemen in the past, and they would probably start doing it again, especially over oil. And I read just before time of recording here, at like 6 p.m. today, Yemen did attack 2 Saudi ships that were going to be sailing south. And then, out of the 5 of them carrying 3.8 million barrels of oil, the other 3, started they started traveling north to go around Africa to get to Asia, basically. So that's another, I don't know, 10,000 miles on their trip. But yeah. I guess they figure that's the only way to do it, so that's the way they're going to do it.
Yeah, that's
Yemen. Yeah, they don't need a Navy or an Air Force or anything. They just need missiles. They can hit stuff 70 miles off the coast. Iran has taught them how to make missiles, and they make a lot of the parts domestically, and they get parts from China. And there was about a year ago, a little over a year ago, the U.S. hit an apartment complex in Yemen just to get one missile guy.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that.
We talked about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, to your point, I mean, it's not like they're at one point in time, the Houthis could only get these missiles from Iran. But like you said, they've been taught how to build them. They can outsource the materials or build them locally. So, and like we're saying, they may not be the most accurate, but they're accurate enough to make ship take an extra 10,000-mile detour. So
Yeah. And they buy a lot of parts from China. And by the way, I heard Ukraine gets a lot of parts from China too to make their drones. Russia doesn't like that, but there's not much Russia can do. And
yeah,
China's government just figures it's not even so much a centrally directed uh, a phenomenon in China. But even though we associate them with the idea that they're centrally planned, but the Chinese government can't control what all of their millions of factories do. And if Chinese factories can sell Ukrainians drone parts, they're just going to do it.
I'll say this for China. Yeah, they might be, politically, they might be friends with Russia, but they, as long as the dollar bill is still supreme, they really don't care. They'll sell to whoever. Business is separate from politics, even though within the border of China, business and politics are directly connected. When it comes to the international thing, meh.
Yeah, this also brings to mind Syria. China
Oh, yeah.
liked Bashar al-Assad. Apparently, Putin and Bashar al-Assad did not get along interpersonally for some reason, so that might have been part of the reason he got taken out. But remember, you had Salih Hudayar on the program about 6 months or a year ago talking about Chinese Uyghurs. Well, they don't consider themselves Chinese, but these Uyghurs in East Turkestan traveling to Syria and China letting them out. And how, oh man, that's so terrible. China would let these radical Muslims out of the country and just turn a blind eye to them. And, in a sense, yeah, why would they do that to their friend Bashar al-Assad?
But even still, if al-Assad isn't friends
China,
with Putin, then why did he run to Russia to hide?
well, I don't know. He's friendly enough that
Fair.
Russia isn't going to kill him. But
Right.
anyway, China wants these East Turkestan Muslims to be fighting in Syria more than they want them in East Turkestan or China, Xinjiang. And if that means Bashar al-Assad gets deposed, China figures, well, he's like 10,000 miles away. Who cares? So that's China.
But also, if al-Assad would have bought shit from China, they you know what I'm saying? Business and politics, it's strange. China's culture when it comes to this is so different.
Well, a big reason that regime fell is that they had no money. So sanctions really worked on them. That he couldn't pay his army anymore. So Israel just their intelligence got in touch with all the members of his army, all the high colonels and up, and say, hey, we're deposing Assad. We know he can't pay you, and we know you're tired of this. And then it's just happened.
Speaking of Russia and then military things, have you heard of what just happened in Africa with the Wagner fighters again?
With is this Mali and the Jabhat Nusrat al-Islam wal-Muslimin?
Yeah,
no, I have not heard anything recently.
So the last word that I heard was there was a little bit of a skirmish. The Wagner fighters handled up, and keep in mind what I'm about to say. This is not regular Russian soldiers. This is in Ukraine. This is private military contractors that happen to be Russian, but they dismembered the fighters and were like putting body parts in like swastikas and shit like that as a joke and all this. So the Mali fighters did what they did last time, and you had the regular forces, rebel forces, and like a terrorist group all come together and fucking sweep the Wagner fighters, and there was another massacre. And that's the last word I heard. I can't verify if that's true or not, but yeah, the Wagner fighters, from what I understand, they just had a rerun of, was it last year or 2 years ago when they had the big massacre of Russian fighters or some shit. I don't know, dude. It's crazy. But what made me think of that, we're talking about Syria. Russia still has their big naval base in Syria, right? They haven't left that by any means. That's their one source to the Mediterranean, correct?
Yeah, last I heard, they still have that.
Okay. And that's what I thought with all the shit going on in Syria. It was crazy to me, like those two bases, pretty much everybody agreed, regardless if it was Kurdish fighters, Syrian fighters, terrorist group, whatever, everybody agreed, yo, we're not fucking with those two bases. that is not serious property, nor is it our problem. And they left him alone. So I can just imagine these Russian dudes that are stationed at this naval facility. They're just looking out over the barricade and just watching the entire country around them just get swallowed up in all the fighting and shit. Meanwhile, they're just like, all right, that's a them problem. But anyway, I don't know. I didn't know if maybe you had heard something as far as the whole Mali situation goes, because,
On Telegram, my last message about J-Nim was on Saturday. I haven't tried Wagner. I have not been keeping up with this. Whatever happens, happens. I'm just a determinist on this. Whatever happens, happens. It's out of my control.
No, that's absolutely correct. Continuing on here, the Houthis followed their announcement. In June, Saudi Arabian oil exports via the Red Sea averaged roughly 4 million barrels per day. In a total, about 7% of the global oil output, 7.4 million barrels per day, transited the critical waterway, according to the maritime intelligence from Kepler, up from 4.2 million in 2025. Damn, okay, that definitely went up a tick. The Houthis followed their announcement with an email to shippers that, according to Reuters, said, an email? The Houthi rebels sent an email to the shipping companies. All right. And that's when they told them vessels are banned from loading or discharging cargo from the Saudi ports. The message went on to threaten that vessels transporting Saudi cargo may be subject to targeting in any location, which we talked about that already. The criminal Saudi enemy continues its unjust and brutal siege on our dear people for nearly 12 years, plundering wealth and imposing a comprehensive blockade on ports and airports by land, sea, and air, which has worsened the suffering of our dear people until conditions reached an unbearable level without any right or justification for doing so. That's what the Yemeni military spokesperson Yahya Saree stated in an announcement on the maritime blockade. The Saudi Ministry of Foreign Affairs issued a statement declaring that, quote, the kingdom is, at the same time, taking all necessary measures to protect its ships. The statement also denounced Houthi claims that Saudi Arabia contributes to the suffering of Yemenis, noting Saudi support for the internationally recognized government of Yemen. Okay, so Saudi Arabia is being very clear here. They don't have a problem with Yemen. They got a problem with the Houthis. Since early July, the Houthis in Iran have attempted to break the Saudi air blockade against the Houthis and portray it as oppression. Currently, vetted civilian and humanitarian flights are permitted to Houthi-controlled territory, but no direct access is allowed between Yemen's Houthi-controlled airports in Iran. On July 13th, Saudi Arabia struck Sana'a International Airport to prevent an Iranian plane from returning the Houthi delegation to Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei's funeral. In response, the Houthis launched drones and missiles at Abha International Airport in southern Saudi Arabia, all of which were intercepted. Shocker. On July 21st, the Houthis announced a campaign on X in support of the blockade, calling for people to post with the hashtag Siege for Siege and, quote, escalation for escalation. Okay, so I thought it was at least worth bringing up. The Houthis are doing their thing, and as we're talking about it, let's continue going south here. The Democratic... Oh, go ahead.
I got a thing. So the Houthis do control something like 80% of the populated area or population of Yemen. This other transitional council or whatever the internationally recognized government is, that's the one that's recognized by Saudi Arabia, the U.S., and Israel. But they control like the far west, northwest area, including the port of Aden. I read about a week ago the Houthis were trying to conquer Aden. I guess they didn't get it.
Yeah.
But the Houthis still have the majority of the country. I had another thing, and I'm blanking on it. But
I remember hearing about that with the port of Aden. I remember hearing about that as well. I didn't know if they had started the siege, if they had made their big offensive, or what. I didn't hear much about it. All I knew was that they were planning an assault.
Oh yeah, and the funeral of Ayatollah Khamenei. I guess it took them 4 months to get around to it, but they took his body all around Iran and to Karbala and Najaf in Iraq, and something like 10 million people came out for his body. It really reminded me of hearing about when Robert E. Lee died in 1890 or 91, and they took his body around, and everybody in every town they went through came out for his
Absolutely.
funeral procession.
I mean, the man was, he was a legend.
A legend.
As far as the
Yeah.
South is concerned. And hell, even still to this day, generals from all over the world study his tactics. I mean, the dude was a tactician. He loved his frontal charges. I was like, man, anyway. Yeah. Also, I'm not a fan of the, honestly, I can't even say that because Robert E. Lee himself was not a fan of slavery. Actually, the only reason he didn't fight for the Union was because Virginia, his home, went to the South and he didn't want to attack his people. It's the only reason. He didn't have any beef with the North as far as that's concerned. It was more about protecting his people. But yeah, Robert E. Lee was kind of a whole legend in and of himself, to be honest with you.
Yep. I'm also very pro Robert E. Lee, and I'm sure if Spirit Animal were here with us,
Oh,
this
he'd be
evening,
going on a
he'd
whole
be
tangent.
chiming in right now. He was too good. If he had just conquered Washington, D.C. early on, as I've read he probably could have, he
Yep.
would have sacrificed some of his reputation, but he would have ended the war way earlier with the Southern victory. And oh man, if any of us could get in a time machine and just tell him, you got to do this because here's what happens if you don't.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
But
It
even
would've been
still,
so
dude,
different.
I've there's been so many, armchair historians that look at what would have happened if the South would have won, right? And okay, slavery would have stayed a thing, but it was already on its way out. Like most of the modern world in that day and age was doing away with slavery, but it would have probably led to an apartheid style situation in the Confederate States, and that is not a good thing either. It would have been very bad, and I'm not saying that it was great with the way, like the Reconstruction period and Jim Crow laws and the rise of the Klan, and there was no pretty way to go to do away with the institution of slavery. I get that. I am saying that if the South would have won, it would have been a lot uglier. I'll say that. But yeah, but as far as Robert E. Lee goes, yeah, he's an absolute legend.
By the way, Nick Fuentes again, he had a little rant about how the South wasn't based. The South, wanted to keep all these black people here. Lincoln was based. He wanted to send them all back to Africa. So
You see
why
what
do
I'm
you
saying?
guys support the South?
You see what I'm saying, dude? Like, he says the most controversial shit just to say it. It still blew my mind that he had the fucking stones to go on Candace Owens' show and have an interview with her and legitimately say that black people were inferior to white people, and that is a nature not nurture thing. Like, that dude, you're on a black woman's program, which is way bigger than yours, and you're not even playing around. Like, you're just going for it here. And again, in a certain level of like sipping the haterade, and that's like your whole thing, I get it. There's got to be a line, dude. There's got to be some sort of a limit. And it's mind-blowing to me. Well, when the white colonialists got to sub-Saharan Africa in the, 1600s, they still hadn't discovered the wheel. That's crazy. Well, Egypt's in Africa. Yeah, that's the Horn of Africa. We're talking about sub-Saharan. They hadn't invented the wheel, but somehow they were, all of these stories that we hear. And it's like, yeah, but neither did the Aztecs. And they were able to build their whole empire without, you know what I'm saying? It's crazy. It's crazy to me, the logic that human being applies. But anyway. All right, back onto this. So, Democratic Republic of the Congo, there is an Ebola outbreak. We've talked about this. It's nothing that we are going to need to worry about in America. Obviously, Ebola hits the African continent about once every decade or so, give or take a couple of years left or right of that. But as of this moment, they say that they are seeing signs of stabilization. And we're not going to spend too much time on this article. What we do need to take away is that the death toll right now is just under 1,000. And let's see, there is a 90%, the outbreak has reported in 5 provinces in the DRC, but the province of Ituri remains the epicenter of the outbreak, accounting for more than 90% of the cases and also 80% of the deaths. That's what Dr. Fierno Baldi World Health Organization incident manager, had said. In addition to Ituri, the other impacted provinces are North Kivu, South Kivu, Haut-Uli, and Tishopo. Hope I'm pronounced those correctly. Speaking to journalists in Geneva from Brunei, capital of Ituri province, and the heart of the outbreak, Dr. Baldi confirmed that the Bundibugyo, I definitely mispronounced that one, virus behind this latest Ebola outbreak has also extended its reach to new areas in the eastern region where chronic instability and the threat of conflict have combined with highly mobile and often displaced populations to create ideal conditions for the infection to spread. So, all right, we're keeping an eye on the Ebola outbreak in Africa. Dude, y'all tell me what y'all think. Hit me in the comments section on this one if you're listening or watching me on YouTube. Do y'all believe that this is going to be the next scare? Because of, we had the Ebola outbreak in the 2000s and everybody was super worried about it. It was around the time frame of like, it's going to be West Nile, it's going to be swine flu, it's going to be mad cow disease, it's going to be Ebola. And y'all remember how that got, over dramatized and shit. That being said, they were trying to make the hantavirus. Oh, it's a COVID again. And the entire world bullied that out of existence. Y'all remember this. That was great. I'm so glad that the world decided to bully that out. I don't know if Ebola is going to be the next big virus to take over and make the mandates come back and the masks and all the shit. I'm curious if y'all think that the powers that be are going to use Ebola, or is it something new that it's not out there in the popular zeitgeist yet. Let me know what y'all think in the comments. But anyway, all right. Last thing that you know what? That's all I really had. I was going to pull up the Jess Staley stuff, but no real need on that. Anyway, I guess this is as good a time as any to wrap up. Actually, before I roll, let me double check the comments, make sure. Yeah, no, that's about it. All right, cool. Once again, everybody, I want to thank y'all for joining me this evening on the Cajun Night Live. As always, it's been fun. If you're listening to this and you would like to be a part of this conversation, you need to go to the link in the show notes below to patreon.com/Cajun Night. There's only one tier for entry on the Patreon. That is where we get together. That's where the link gets sent out so you can join in on this Zoom call and be a part of the conversation every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Central. I always have a good time. I feel like all the members of the retinue do. We're just trying to grow this thing. We're trying to grow the retinue to become its own independent information sharing meetup once a week. And I thoroughly enjoy it. Anyway, with all that being said, everybody, thank y'all for joining me. I am the Cajun Knight. And as always, God bless.